Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. When a quiet woodworker refuses to bow to a power-hungry HOA president, a petty turf war explodes into a hilarious, high-stakes battle over one private road. Revenge is served with tolls, tech, and smoked ribs, and the gate only opens for those who pay or learn their lesson. I never thought a quiet life could get hijacked by something as absurd as a neighborhood committee, but that's how the story begins. My name's Zach Weller. I'm 41, a woodworker by trade and a solitude enthusiast by nature. 15 years ago, I bought myself 20 acres of rough, untouched land just outside a sleepy county town in Tennessee. No fancy developments, no cookie-cutter neighbors, just a gravel road slicing through pine and hickory that led straight to my front porch. I built my house with my own hands, shaped a workshop nearby, and paved my own private access road out to the state highway. That road, just under a mile long, curves through my land like a spine. No city easement, no shared use, nothing. It's mine, on paper and in practice. Now, here's the kicker. About 10 years back, a gated community, High Ridge Bluffs, sprouted up next to my property. Swanky homes, uniform lawns, identical mailboxes, and of course, a homeowners association with more rules than the IRS. The only convenient exit from their development? My road. For a decade, I let them use it, free of charge. It was a gesture of goodwill, never formalized, just neighborly decency. They waved. I waved. Nobody had a problem, that is, until Karen Lowry became HOA president. I remember the day she showed up like it was yesterday. Beige power suit, pearls tight around her neck like she was being choked by her own sense of superiority. The smile was plastic, the clipboard lethal. She didn't come to say hi. She came to measure, to assess, to conquer. At the time, I had no idea just how deep her sense of entitlement ran. I didn't know she was already digging through property records looking for leverage. I didn't know she was planning to make my road her personal chessboard. But I was about to find out. And when I did, it kicked off a war between common sense and weaponized bureaucracy, one that started with a letter in my mailbox and nearly ended with a courtroom mic drop. But I'm getting ahead of myself. It all began the morning I opened that letter. The letter came in an envelope that looked far too official for something that absurd. Thick paper, embossed logo. High Ridge Bluffs HOA. Compliance Division. Just reading it gave me a mild spike in blood pressure. I sat on my porch with a mug of black coffee and ripped it open, expecting maybe a misdirected newsletter or a request to trim a tree. Instead, I found a bill for $70,000 in supposed violations. I nearly choked on my coffee. According to this document, formatted like a legal summons, no less, I was in breach of multiple HOA ordinances. Yes, me, the guy who isn't in the HOA. The letter listed infractions with the precision of a tax audit. Improper facade color, non-compliant with pallet standards. Unauthorized antenna structure exceeding approved height. Stationary vehicle parked for more than 72 hours. Overgrowth on sloped terrain deemed hazardous to aesthetics and drainage. Hazardous to aesthetics? The sloped terrain was the backside of my garage, a literal forested hill I let be natural on purpose. It wasn't a golf course, but it wasn't a landfill either. I called the number listed on the letter. A robotic voice put me on hold, playing classical music that made my skin itch. Finally, a clipped, cheerful voice answered, "High Ridge Bluffs HOA. Karen speaking." Of course it was her. "Karen," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I just received a letter from your office claiming I owe 70 grand in fines. There's been a mistake." There was a pause. I could hear her smile forming through the phone. "Mr. Weller, now that your property directly abuts our community, it falls under our revised zone of influence. We recently re-examined our jurisdiction boundaries. Everything is in order." "Zone of influence?" I repeated, stunned. "My property isn't part of your HOA. I've never signed anything. You can't just annex my land." She sighed like I was the one being difficult. "We believe it's in the best interest of community harmony that all properties within shared access zones adhere to standard guidelines. Your road connects to our exit. So, technically, it's mutual infrastructure. Technically, it's mine," I snapped. "Legally, you have no authority over my land," she continued, undeterred. "Well, these issues are serious. If you'd prefer to resolve things amicably, the board is willing to consider alternate remedies." "What kind of remedies?" She didn't miss a beat. For example, we'd be willing to waive part of the penalty if you'd formalize your access road as a community easement. Make it public use. That would settle the matter. I stared at the phone like it had grown horns. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a shakedown. They slapped me with fake fines, then offered a deal where I give them permanent legal access to my road, all because I was nice enough to let them use it for free. I ended the call without another word. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the raw, boiling rage of betrayal. I'd spent years maintaining that gravel road, patching holes after every storm, grading it myself with an old tractor. Not once had anyone offered help or thanks. And now they wanted to take it. Not over my dead, antenna-violating body. That day, I started planning. I wasn't going to argue with their logic. I wasn't going to beg. If they wanted to play legal games, I'd beat them at their own. Step 1. No more free rides. When people try to steal from you with a smile on their face and a clipboard in their hand, there's only one thing to do. Go full entrepreneur out of spite. That same evening, I stood at the edge of my property with a beer in one hand and a tape measure in the other. The sun was going down, casting a golden haze over my long, winding road, the one that HOA residents treated like their God-given shortcut to civilization. Not anymore. I wasn't just going to block the road. I was going to monetize their entitlement. The next morning, I filed paperwork online to register Weller Private Access Services, LLC. Logo: a little cartoon of a smug guy leaning on a toll booth. I liked the irony. Then I called up my buddy Travis, who runs a local metalworks shop, and asked for a custom electronic gate system, one that could handle license plate recognition, remote access control, and had a speaker system for, let's say, community announcements. 3 days later, it was being installed. I poured gravel for a proper turnaround zone just outside the gate, repainted the post fence lining my side of the property, and mounted a weatherproof sign above the keypad. Private road, pay to pass, $10 per entry or monthly residential. Pass, $500. All proceeds support Weller Private Access Services TM and the cost of dealing with entitled HOA nonsense. And just so they couldn't claim ignorance, I had certified letters sent to every household in High Ridge Bluffs, letting them know that effective immediately, the road was closed to public access unless contractual use was agreed upon. I even added a fun legal note at the bottom of the notice. This is a revocation of informal license to access private property. Continued unauthorized entry constitutes trespass under TN Code, paragraph 39-14-405. In case anyone needed bedtime reading, the response was immediate and delicious. The very next morning, a stream of high-end SUVs and minivans rolled up to the now-closed gate. I watched from my porch with a thermos of coffee and binoculars. There was honking, shouting, phone waving, even a dude trying to scan his Costco card at the keypad. One woman leaned out of her window and screamed, "You can't do this! We have carpool." Another guy, in a BMW with yoga mats in the back, got out and tried to reason with the keypad by explaining that he'd lived here for 7 years. Eventually, someone must have called Karen because 15 minutes later, her white Escalade came storming down the road like she was leading a cavalry charge. She stopped just inches from the gate, stepped out in heels way too high for gravel, and marched straight toward me. "Zachary," she snapped, like she was scolding a teenager who TP'd a lawn. "This is illegal. You're obstructing access to an established route." I sipped my coffee. Access you never had permission for. It was a courtesy. You burned that bridge when you tried to invoice me 70 grand for existing. We've used this road for years. And I've used my mouth for years. Doesn't make it public property. She crossed her arms. You can't charge people to get home. I raised an eyebrow. Then maybe they should have paid attention to property lines before building their cookie-cutter castles. She turned red, actual tomato red, and yelled something about calling her attorney. I waved her off and returned to my porch as the automated voice from the gate kicked in. "Welcome to Weller Private Access. Please insert payment or turn around." It was like music to my ears. By sunset, word had spread. Some residents turned around immediately. Others just waited, like I was going to change my mind if they stared long enough. But I didn't flinch. I'd tried to be generous. They tried to screw me. Now it was business. You ever witness a suburban riot? No, not like pitchforks and torches, but the HOA version. Picture yoga moms in Range Rovers, angry dads in golf polos, and toddlers with juice boxes screaming in the back seat as a gate ruins their entire morning routine. It was Monday at 7:12 a.m., also known as school drop-off apocalypse hour in High Ridge Bluffs. The sun had barely cleared the tree line when the first few SUVs rolled up to my shiny new electronic gate, blinking red with purpose. One by one they lined up, realizing too late that their precious shortcut was now pay to play. I'd set up a folding chair on my porch with a thermos of coffee and a pair of binoculars, not because I needed to watch, but because justice tastes better with a front row seat. At first, there was stunned confusion. Some residents tried punching numbers into the keypad like they were at a gas pump. One woman rolled down her window and shouted, "Is this a prank? This has to be a prank." She honked twice like that would change anything. Spoiler, it didn't. Within 15 minutes, there were 12 cars backed up on the gravel. One minivan driver attempted a dramatic U-turn and immediately got stuck in the drainage ditch, which I admit wasn't designed for panic-reversing Honda Odysseys. And then Karen arrived. Like a general surveying a failed siege, she pulled up in her pearl-white Escalade, stepped out in heels, and immediately began live streaming on Facebook. "This is an outrage. We are being held hostage on our own land." The camera was pointed at my gate, then spun wildly as she narrated like she was reporting from a war zone. "This is Zachary Weller. He's charging us $10 just to get to work. And there's no detour. They've got to go around 3 miles out of the way. Think of the children." From my porch, I gave a friendly wave to her camera. "Hi, Karen. Morning. You forgot to mention that I own the road." She screamed back, "You can't own a road." I pulled out a laminated copy of my deed, held it over my head like a trophy. "Tell that to the county registrar." Now other neighbors were stepping out of their cars, trying to form a mutiny. One dad and joggers shouted, "Just open the gate, man. This is ridiculous." Another mom clutched her latte like it was holy water. "I have Pilates in 20 minutes. By this point, the gate's speaker system kicked in with a chipper automated message I'd programmed myself. "Welcome to Weller. Private access services. Please insert payment or turn around. Complaints may be shouted into the forest. They will not be heard." The laughter that followed didn't come from me. It came from 2 teenage boys riding their bikes past the whole scene. One filmed the chaos on his phone, snickering. I later found the video on TikTok under the title, "Karen Tries to Storm Private Property, Gets Hit with Toll Booth Boss Fight." It hit 500K views by noon. But Karen wasn't laughing. She marched straight to the gate, yanked at it like she could rip it off with willpower alone, then bellowed, "I am going to have you arrested." At that exact moment, as if summoned by divine timing, Deputy Carlson from the Sheriff's Department pulled up. I'd called the station in advance, knowing full well someone would try to escalate this. Carlson stepped out, adjusted his belt, looked at the scene, then looked at me. "Morning, Zach. Everything okay here?" I smiled. "Just collecting tolls, Deputy." Karen stomped up to him. "This is illegal. He's blocked our only exit." Carlson raised an eyebrow. "Is that so?" "Zach, you own this road. Deeded and registered." He nodded. "And you revoked access in writing?" "Certified letters, dated and stamped." He looked at Karen. "Ma'am, I'm afraid he's well within his rights." "This is a community emergency." "Ma'am, it's a traffic jam in a cul-de-sac." Karen's face turned a shade of red I didn't think nature could produce. She turned, stormed back to her Escalade, and screamed into her phone something about lawyers and Civil Code 13B something or other. Meanwhile, the rest of the neighborhood began slowly accepting their fate. One by one, cars either paid through the mobile app I set up. Yes, I thought ahead. Or they turned around and took the long route. Faces twisted in a mix of shame and caffeine withdrawal. By 9 a.m., the chaos had faded. I poured myself another cup of coffee, leaned back in my chair, and watched the gate swing closed behind the last SUV. The automated voice chirped, "Thank you for choosing Weller Private Access. Please come again. Cash only for Karens." I swear I heard applause, or maybe that was just the sound of sweet, sweet justice echoing down my gravel driveway. Either way, the message was clear. Play stupid games, win paid tolls. I always thought courtrooms were quiet, somber places where lawyers droned, judges sighed, and the fluorescent lights hummed louder than anyone spoke. Turns out they're also prime theaters for watching someone's ego crumble in real time, especially when that someone is Karen Lowry. After the gate fiasco and her failed attempts to weaponize the sheriff's department, Karen did what any HOA president with a bruised ego and a god complex would do. She sued me. Her claim? That the road had been in continuous public use by the community for over a decade and therefore constituted a de facto easement. She brought in a private attorney, some slick-looking guy in an overpriced suit who had clearly never seen a gravel road in his life, and filed for a temporary injunction to force me to reopen the road. What she didn't count on was that I had receipts. All of them. My lawyer, Mitch Barlow, retired prosecutor, full-time bulldog, walked into that courtroom like it was a barbecue. He had a rolling briefcase full of county deeds, surveyor maps, historic aerial photos, notarized maintenance logs, and even a letter from the original developer of High Ridge Bluffs stating that the HOA had never acquired an easement or right-of-way over my property. Karen sat at the plaintiff's table, arms crossed, jaw clenched, pearls practically strangling her with each passing moment. Her lawyer did his best to spin the narrative that usage equaled right, that I was unjustly enriching myself by monetizing a public necessity, and that my gate presented a clear and present threat to community function and well-being. Mitch stood up calm as a stone and said, "Your Honor, this isn't a case about necessity. It's a case about entitlement. The defense will show that Mr. Weller is the sole and lawful owner of the road in question, that the HOA has never possessed any legal claim to its use, and that their sudden interest in community standards came only after attempting to fine him $70,000 based on fabricated authority." And then he dropped the first bomb, the fake map. See, in Karen's initial complaint packet, they'd submitted a revised community plan showing my access road drawn inside HOA boundaries with no official seal, no registration, and, hilariously, my name misspelled as Zach Wheeler. Mitch held it up with a smirk. This is not a legal document. It is a PowerPoint fantasy created to intimidate my client. The judge squinted at it. Who authored this map? Karen's lawyer stammered. It was provided by the HOA president. All eyes turned to Karen. Her face was frozen in a tight smile. You know the kind people wear when their entire worldview is collapsing in public. The defense called me to the stand. I testified to the years of quiet tolerance, the maintenance I'd done solo, the complete absence of any agreements or contracts, and the sudden weaponization of fabricated fines. Mitch even introduced video footage of Karen screaming at the gate, which the judge watched with eyebrows raised and lips twitching like he was fighting the urge to laugh. Then came the verdict. The judge took a full 30 seconds of silence before speaking. It is abundantly clear to this court that Mr. Weller's property rights have been infringed upon without legal basis. The plaintiff's attempt to fabricate jurisdiction through unofficial documents is, frankly, appalling. He declared all fines null and void, dismissed the injunction with prejudice, and granted me $125,000 in damages for harassment, legal fees, and reputational harm. I didn't cheer. I didn't fist pump. I just exhaled. But Karen? She crumbled. Right there in court, her composure shattered like a porcelain vase knocked off a shelf. Her hands trembled. Her lipstick, so precisely applied, cracked at the corners as her mouth dropped open. "This isn't fair," she gasped. "I'm trying to protect our community." The judge glanced over his glasses, dry as dust. "You were trying to protect control. There's a difference." Her lawyer patted her shoulder, whispering damage control, but Karen shook him off. She looked right at me, like I'd personally bulldozed her dream of HOA dominion, and hissed, "You'll regret this." But I didn't. Not for a second, because as I walked out of that courtroom, $125,000 richer and one Karen lighter, I felt something I hadn't in weeks. Light, free, viciously victorious. The courthouse steps were glowing under afternoon sun. Mitch slapped my back and said, "Drinks on you?" "Drinks on them," I grinned, because sometimes justice doesn't whisper. Sometimes it shouts through a courtroom PA system and hits like a toll booth to the ego. You ever win so hard the other side disappears for a while? That was me, post-court. The day after the verdict, I woke up to find something magical. Silence. No letters in the mailbox, no minivans inching toward the gate, No Karen sightings. Just birds, trees, and the gentle hum of the security system I now had professionally upgraded because I wasn't about to trust that HOA wouldn't try something stupid again. And that gate. Oh, it became a local legend. I installed a custom sign above the keypad that read, "Private road, now court certified. Karen paid $70,000 to learn this lesson. You, just $10. And just for fun, I wired in a Wi-Fi speaker system at the gate. Every time a familiar plate rolled up, especially Karen's Escalade, the motion sensor would trigger my proudest addition, a sarcastic voiceover I recorded myself, mimicking Karen's haughty tone. This is a restricted area. You are not in compliance with aesthetic expectations. Please turn around before you endanger the community. It was beautiful. Neighbors laughed. Delivery drivers gave me thumbs up. One teen filmed it and added it to his Top 10 Karen Moments YouTube compilation. But what happened to the actual Karen? Well, after losing in court and having her forged documents enter the public record, she became something of a suburban ghost story. Within a week, the HOA board held an emergency vote. Karen was removed from the presidency unanimously and replaced by an exhausted-looking dad named Greg who just wanted to focus on holiday decoration guidelines and not lawsuits. HOA members began distancing themselves faster than toddlers from vegetables. Some even apologized to me, face to face, clutching coffee cups like peace offerings. Karen, meanwhile, vanished. Her Escalade stopped appearing on the road. No more pearls. No more clipboard. Rumor had it she canceled her gym membership, took down her neighborhood Facebook group, and stopped showing up to community meetings entirely. One of her former board allies told me in confidence that Karen had considered selling her house, but her name was now synonymous with legal disaster. She'd become a cautionary tale. One afternoon, I saw her walking her dog alone. No makeup, no perfect hair, just sneakers and sunglasses pulled low. She didn't say a word as she passed. I didn't either. I let the silence speak for both of us and me. I lived better. I bought a new sawmill for my workshop with part of the settlement money. Installed solar panels, even took a few days off to go fishing. Every now and then, I'd sip my coffee on the porch and listen as the speaker at the gate chirped its Karen-esque warning into the forest. Your vehicle may be subject to judgment. Please adjust your attitude. My driveway had become a shrine to property rights, and I was its peaceful guardian. The funny thing, I never wanted to be a symbol of anything. I just wanted to be left alone. But when people tried to treat kindness like weakness, they forgot one simple truth. You don't mess with a man who owns the road you drive on, especially not when he has Wi-Fi, speakers, and a wicked sense of humor. It's funny how things settle down after the storm, how something that once felt like a battlefront turns into background noise again. After months of drama, threats, lawsuits, and Karen-fueled chaos, life on my land finally returned to what it was always supposed to be, quiet. But this wasn't just peace. This was victory. The HOA. Oh, they changed. Not by choice, by necessity. After the courtroom debacle, their insurance premiums shot through the roof. Their legal counsel quit. And the new president, Greg, the dad with mild seasonal depression and 2 kids in lacrosse, issued a formal apology to all non-members the HOA had previously misidentified, which is a polite way of saying, we screwed up. Please don't sue us again. They even tried a bit of rebranding, new signs, new font, fewer rules. Gone were the memos about mailbox symmetry and hedge behavior. Instead, they launched a community harmony initiative, which included an email list, a monthly movie night, and, this is real, a communal composting bin named Squishy. I'll admit, I kind of respected that last one. Then one day, I received an envelope, but this time, not from a lawyer. It was a handwritten note from Greg. Zach, we're planning a neighborhood BBQ to reset things. No HOA agenda, no drama. Just burgers and an open invite. You don't owe us anything, but we'd be honored if you came. And hey, if you brought that killer smoker I've heard about, well, let's just say the peace offering might come medium rare. Greg, the guy with the raccoon problem. At first I laughed, loud, but then I sat on it, thought about it, and I realized something strange. I wasn't angry anymore. Not at the people, at least. Just at the system that let one person like Karen bully everyone into compliance. And now, that system was in ruins. Mission accomplished. So I did what any stubborn property rights loving craftsman would do. I loaded up the smoker. That Saturday, I rolled up to the HOA's little community park, right past the same gate they used to roll their eyes at. I brought brisket, ribs, and a cooler of homemade lemonade that could stun a buffalo. People clapped. Someone yelled, "The gatekeeper's here," which was weirdly flattering. I was halfway through slicing a rack of ribs when someone tapped me on the shoulder. It was Karen, wearing jeans, a simple cardigan, and a look I hadn't seen on her before. Genuine humility. "Hi, Zach," she said, voice soft. "Karen, I wanted to say I was wrong about a lot of things. I let the title go to my head. I thought rules made things better, but all I did was push people away." I nodded. Let her speak. "You were just trying to live your life. I made it harder for no good reason." There was a long pause. Then she looked at the smoker. "Those ribs smell amazing." "They are." She smiled, the first real one I'd ever seen from her. "Mind if I grab a plate?" I handed her one. No lecture, no sarcasm, just ribs. As the sun dipped low and kids ran through sprinklers, neighbors sat side by side on folding chairs, laughing over grilled corn and spilled soda. Nobody mentioned bylaws. Nobody measured grass. We just were. And somewhere, between the firewood crackle and the smell of smoked hickory, I realized the war was over. Not because one side lost, but because everyone finally learned what a boundary was really for. Not to divide, but to protect what matters. And sometimes to hold a really good BBQ.